My uncle told me I'd never make it past community college. His exact words still echo in my head. Girls like you don't belong in real universities. You'll drop out before you even finish your first semester. I laughed it off that night, but inside, it broke me. 10 years later, I was no longer the quiet girl at the dinner table. I was the dean of students at one of the most prestigious colleges in the country, and the person nervously clutching an admission folder in front of my office was his son. My name is Sophia Bennett, though my family always called me by my middle name, Claire. I grew up in a household where education wasn't just important, it was a scoreboard. My uncle Robert was obsessed with being the successful one in the family, and he paraded his son Matthew around like a trophy. Robert never missed a chance to remind me that compared to Matthew, I was destined to fail. I still remember the night it all started. I was 17, sitting at the family dining table, nervously announcing that I had enrolled in community college. My parents smiled with pride. They knew how hard I'd worked just to get that far. But my uncle? He smirked, leaned back in his chair, and said, "Community college isn't real college. Claire will be lucky if she makes it through one semester without dropping out. Mark my words." The table erupted in laughter, everyone except my parents. And me? I sat there, staring at my plate, pretending it didn't hurt. The fork in my hand trembled, not because I was weak, but because rage and shame fought inside me like fire and gasoline. I was 17, cornered at that dinner table, and my uncle's voice kept cutting into me like a blade. "Face it, Claire. You'll be lucky to scrape your way through community college. People like you don't end up in the big leagues." His words weren't just criticism, they were prophecy, carved in stone in front of my entire family. And the way my cousins laughed, it was a chorus of betrayal. My younger cousin Matthew, only 8, grinned awkwardly, parroting the words he barely understood, while my aunts whispered, smirking at my naive ambition. Those 6 words sank into me, but I refused to let them kill me. I forced myself to look at him, my voice steady even as my heart broke. "Maybe not now, but one day, Matthew, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember laughing at me." The room went silent for a breath. Then they laughed harder. My mother shifted uncomfortably, her eyes downcast. She wanted to defend me. I knew she did, but years of being dismissed had broken something in her. She whispered, "Claire, just eat." But I couldn't. Not with bile rising in my throat. I dropped my fork and stood. "I'm done." Their laughter followed me as I walked out. It echoed down the hall like a cruel soundtrack, each step a reminder. They didn't just doubt me, they wanted me small, insignificant, forgotten. That night, in my room, I cried until my chest ached. But even as my pillow soaked with tears, something hardened inside me. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of being right. The next few years were war. War against poverty, against exhaustion, against every voice that told me, "You can't." My mother cleaned houses, worked double shifts just to keep the lights on. I studied by candlelight when the power was cut. I took part-time jobs to pay for books, scrubbing dishes in the same restaurants where wealthy kids from my high school came to eat. Sometimes they'd recognize me. Sometimes they'd laugh. But I never stopped. Community college became my crucible. While others partied, I poured myself into academics. Professors noticed me, not because I was brilliant, but because I was relentless. If I didn't understand something, I stayed until I did. I remember one night, elbows deep in a stack of psychology textbooks, tears streaming down my face from exhaustion, when a professor came by my side and said, "Claire, you have the kind of focus and persistence that doesn't come along often. Don't waste it." Those words were oxygen. I transferred to a prestigious university with a scholarship. The campus was a world apart from the one I grew up in. Stone buildings towered above me. Professors carried the weight of decades of knowledge, and students spoke in a polished cadence I could barely follow. I felt small, out of place, and terrified. But that terror became fuel. I worked nights at the library, often until the janitors nudged me out at closing. I volunteered for research projects, managed tutoring programs, and took internships that left me exhausted but with experience my classmates couldn't buy. Every late night, every missed social event, every ramen dinner stacked my foundation higher. And while my family still whispered, still dismissed me at gatherings, I stayed quiet. I didn't need their validation, I was building something bigger. But the tension never truly disappeared. One holiday, I returned home with acceptance letters for graduate school tucked in my bag. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd see me differently. My uncle's laughter greeted me first. "Graduate school? Claire, you're just setting yourself up for debt. People like us don't become professors or deans. You'll see. That word again, realistic. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I looked him in the eye and smiled. Watch me. Years blurred into late nights, dissertations, conferences, sacrifices that would have broken a weaker spirit. But each step forward felt like quiet revenge. Not loud, not flashy, just steady, undeniable progress. I earned my master's, then my doctorate, juggling work and study with the precision of someone who had been underestimated her entire life. During those years, I mentored younger students who reminded me of myself. Quiet, nervous, underestimated. I helped them navigate the halls, the bureaucracy, the sneers of people who assumed they couldn't belong. And each time I saw a student flourish because of guidance I provided, I felt the echo of my own journey. I was rewriting what it meant to be underestimated and thriving because of it. By the time I finally stepped into the office of a prestigious university as Dean of Students, the girl they mocked was gone. The woman who replaced her carried the confidence of hard-won victories, the kind that can't be stolen or diminished. My office overlooked the courtyard where hundreds of students walk daily, full of the same doubts and hopes I once carried. Every time I looked out, I whispered to my younger self, "You made it, and you made it big." Then came the day his name crossed my desk, Matthew Carter, the golden boy, the cousin who once looked me in the eye and told me I'd never make it. Now, applying for my approval, my signature, my gatekeeping. The irony cut sharper than any insult. I leaned back in my chair, studying his application carefully. The laughter, the dinner table, the humiliation, it all came rushing back. And in that moment, I felt a strange calm. This wasn't just paperwork. This was full circle justice. I already knew the stakes. The golden boy who once smirked at me across the dinner table, who parroted his father's cruel words, was now sitting across from me. His perfectly pressed shirt couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders, the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," I said, voice calm, measured. "Please, have a seat." He blinked. Recognition dawned slowly, like sunlight breaking through clouds. His mouth opened, closed, and finally he whispered, "Claire?" I allowed a small, polite smile. "Sophia, but Claire is fine. You've met me before, yes?" Matthew swallowed. He glanced at the nameplate. Dean Sophia Brooks. The realization hit him like a cold gust. The boy who once believed he would always outrank me was staring at the woman who controlled the very gate he had thought so easily opened. I watched him fidget, saw the pride that once oozed from him falter. This was my moment, and I didn't need to speak harshly to make the point. Power had a voice of its own. "Your application," I said, tapping the folder on my desk, "is impressive on paper. But let's be honest. Your recommendation letters tell a story, don't they? A story written by your father, by people who assumed they could preordain success for you." He shifted, eyes darting nervously. I've worked hard," he said, trying to hold the confidence he'd been taught. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. "Yes, I can see that. But hard work isn't the same as merit when the foundation is built on entitlement." Matthew's face drained of color. I could see it. The shock, the guilt, the slowly dawning comprehension that the world he'd taken for granted wasn't guaranteed. Then I added softly but pointedly, "And for the record, Mr. Carter, this isn't personal. This is professional. Your application will be considered like any other. Merit-based, transparent, fair." His shoulders slumped slightly, the mask of arrogance cracking. I didn't need to say more. The irony was already sharp and biting. I made the decision the next day. Matthew Carter would be placed on the wait list. Not because of cruelty, not because I wanted to punish him, but because the truth couldn't be ignored. His application didn't outshine thousands of others who truly earned their place. And yet, the sting of irony would linger. Later that evening, I received a call from my Uncle Robert. His voice, usually commanding and smug, faltered when he realized he was speaking to me. "Sophia, Claire, I didn't know." "Yes, Uncle Robert," I said evenly. "This is the dean's office. I'm in charge here." There was silence on the other end, and in that quiet, I felt the years of laughter, the ridicule, the endless comparisons, all of it crystallize into a moment of quiet triumph. He didn't know what to say. He never had to. The next family gathering was surreal. Matthew called nervously, hoping I might have reconsidered. I let the voicemail play once, then deleted it. My mother watched from the couch, smiling faintly. She had witnessed my journey, had known every struggle, every late night, every insult that tried to break me. She whispered, "You did it, Claire." I nodded. Inside, I felt a fierce satisfaction. Not in revenge for the sake of revenge, but in proving the truth. Persistence, intelligence, and courage always outweigh entitlement. Months later, I walked through campus during graduation season. Students hugged their families, laughed, took photos. I looked down at the courtyard where once I had walked unsure of myself, and I realized something. The person who had been laughed at, mocked, dismissed, she had become the standard others measured against. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was leading. I was shaping futures. And somewhere in that mix of success, Matthew Carter was left to face his own reality. His father's smirk, his unearned confidence, all of it had been powerless against the woman they underestimated. Weeks later, I received an email from Matthew. His tone was cautious, almost ashamed. He asked for advice, how to improve, how to prepare for another chance. I thought about it, and for the first time, I replied, not with gloating, not with cruelty, but with the quiet authority of someone who had lived the lessons she wanted to teach. Work hard, learn, stop relying on others to write your story. Then, maybe next time, you'll earn it. It was enough. I didn't need to rub it in. The irony, the satisfaction, it was already his to process. Sitting in my office later that evening, I looked around. Diplomas on the wall, letters from grateful students, the weight of achievement all around me. I thought back to the 17-year-old girl at the dinner table, trying to hold back tears as her family laughed. I thought about every late night, every sacrifice, every whispered promise to myself. One day, I'll make them eat their words. And now I had, quietly, professionally, indelibly. I smiled, not from revenge, but from vindication. From the joy of knowing that the person who once seemed so small and powerless had grown into someone unstoppable. Life had come full circle. The girl they mocked had become the woman they couldn't ignore. And that truth, simple, elegant, and undeniable, was sweeter than any laugh or insult they had ever thrown. For Sophia Claire Bennett, the final victory wasn't loud. It didn't need to be, because sometimes the most powerful payback is quiet, firm, and completely irreversible. And as I looked out at the courtyard, watching students stride toward their futures, I whispered to myself, "You told me I wouldn't make it. Look at me now."